Many people believe that the Vatican may not have shared the full truth regarding the infamous Third Secret of Fatima. Among those who had access to the original, unedited secret was Father Malachi Martin, a priest who once worked within the Vatican and had first-hand knowledge of the classified contents stored in its archives. Over time, Martin became convinced that what the Church publicly revealed was not the entire message, and that the true secret held far greater implications than what was officially disclosed. Could it be that a crucial portion of this revelation remains hidden from the world? Is there a missing segment of the third secret that has yet to be unveiled? Evidence suggests that something vital might still be concealed. If the Vatican had a reason to keep part of the Fatima secret locked away, what could that reason be? Could it be that the undisclosed portion contains a revelation so shocking that it could unsettle the foundations of faith and shake the world to its core? Or is there another hidden agenda at play? Today, we will explore the truth behind why some believe the complete Third Secret of Fatima has never been fully revealed. And most importantly, we will hear insights from a priest who personally read the secret in its entirety before it was sealed away. To understand the significance of this mystery, we must first go back to where it all began. In 1917, in the small town of Fatima, Portugal, 3 young shepherd children reported a series of divine apparitions. They claimed to have encountered the Virgin Mary, who delivered prophetic messages and performed miracles witnessed by thousands. Among these messages was a prophecy divided into 3 distinct parts, 2 of which were eventually disclosed to the public. The third, however, remained a mystery for many years. While 2 of the children, Francisco and Jacinta Marto, tragically passed away just a few years later, their cousin, Lucia Santos, survived and went on to live a long life as a Carmelite nun. In 1941, Lucia documented the messages she had received and confirmed that the secret contained 3 parts. She released the first 2, but refused to disclose the final portion. Instead, she carefully wrote it down and entrusted the document to the Church, asking that it be delivered to the Pope and made public no later than 1960. However, something unusual happened when the time came. The Vatican refused to release the third secret, stating that it was unlikely to ever be revealed. This decision fueled endless speculation, leading many to wonder what could be so extraordinary that the Church would choose secrecy over transparency. For decades, countless theories emerged, ranging from predictions of global catastrophe to internal warnings about corruption within the Church itself. The secrecy surrounding the message even led to extreme actions, such as in 1981 when an individual hijacked a plane, demanding that Pope John Paul II immediately disclose the hidden secret. Eventually, in the year 2000, the Vatican finally released what it claimed to be the complete third secret. The revealed text described an ominous vision of destruction, a city in ruins, and a bishop dressed in white widely interpreted as a reference to the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. The message also urged humanity to seek repentance and penance. However, rather than putting an end to the controversy, this release only ignited further doubt. Many scholars, theologians, and journalists, including prominent Italian reporter Antonio Soxai, expressed skepticism. They pointed out inconsistencies between the Vatican's published text and what had been previously said about the secret by those who had read it. More significantly, rumors emerged that Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who would later become Pope Benedict XVI, had privately admitted to his close friend, Father Ingo Dollinger, that a crucial segment of the secret was withheld from the public. This missing portion, according to various sources, contained a warning about a crisis within the Church itself. Some believe it spoke of a bad council and a bad mass, which many have linked to the Second Vatican Council and the sweeping reforms that followed. Traditionalist groups argue that these changes led to a weakening of core religious practices and a shift in Church teachings that has been highly debated ever since. If true, this would mean that the third secret was not just a prophecy about external threats to the Church, but rather a grave warning about internal struggles, something that would explain why it was never fully revealed. Christopher Ferrara, an attorney and well-known Catholic commentator, has been among those questioning the official narrative. He pointed to various contradictions within the Vatican's version of the secret, arguing that only a minority of those truly familiar with the events of Fatima believe the vision of a bishop in white in a half-ruined city was the full message. According to these theorists, the real secret was far more unsettling. Some researchers speculate that the hidden portion of the third secret warned of a time when corruption would reach the highest levels of the Church. They suggest that this secret foresaw not only the challenges posed by external ideological forces in the 20th century, but also an internal spiritual crisis. Some even believe that it spoke of a great apostasy, a period where faith would decline, and religious leaders would struggle to uphold true doctrine. There is also speculation that the prophecy contained references to Russia's role in future events. According to Father Malachi Martin, who gave multiple interviews before his passing in 1999, the secret was deeply connected not only to Russia, but also to Ukraine, particularly Kiev. This detail has led to further intrigue in recent years. While Martin never revealed the full contents of the secret outright, likely due to the oath of secrecy he hinted that it included dire warnings about future conflicts, ideological battles, and shifts within the Church itself. One of the most chilling aspects of this speculation involves an alleged statement that surfaced during Martin's interviews. A listener once asked him whether it was true that the third secret contained a prophecy about the final pope being under the influence of an evil force. Though Martin never confirmed or denied this directly, he acknowledged that the prophecy was extremely serious and that it would be devastating if the true contents were ever made public. This raises the ultimate question: why would the Vatican choose to keep this hidden? If the missing part of the third secret contained a warning about dangers within the Church, would revealing it have caused panic, division, or even a crisis of faith? Or is it possible that it foretold an event so drastic that religious authorities feared its impact? While we may never know the full truth behind what was written, the mystery of the Third Secret of Fatima remains one of the most debated topics in religious history. Was the Vatican protecting the faithful from an unsettling revelation, or was it something else entirely? As speculation continues, one thing remains certain: the Third Secret of Fatima is still one of the most enigmatic prophecies ever recorded. When Pope John XXIII read the contents of the Third Secret of Fatima, it is said that the revelation was so overwhelming that he momentarily lost consciousness. The weight of the prophecy struck him with such intensity that he feared the message was directed at him personally. According to reports, when he regained his composure, he expressed his deep concern about what he had just read. Malachi Martin, who had access to the full text, later confirmed that the Pope's reaction was understandable, suggesting that what was written in the secret carried implications far beyond what had ever been publicly acknowledged. While many are only now becoming familiar with Martin's involvement in the Fatima controversy, those who have followed his work know that he had already hinted at the essence of the Third Secret long before it was partially revealed by the Vatican in 2000. In his 1990 book, The Keys of This Blood, Martin provided what is considered to be the most detailed public disclosure of the secret he ever made. This has led many to believe that he had actually held and read the original text with his own hands. Some even suspect that Pope John XXIII had accessed the secret earlier than he was supposed to, well before the anticipated release date in 1960. Within the pages of The Keys of This Blood, Martin did not shy away from describing the terrifying nature of the prophecy. According to him, Sister Lucia's written formulation of the Third Secret covered three main subjects: a catastrophic global punishment. The first part described a chastisement upon the nations, involving disasters that could be either natural or man-made. These events would unfold across land, sea, and even the very atmosphere of the planet. A devastating spiritual crisis. The second aspect was even more alarming for devout Catholics, as it spoke of a period of immense spiritual decline. During this time, faith would weaken on a massive scale, leading to widespread disbelief and abandonment of religious principles. The pivotal role of Russia, the final component of the secret, tied these punishments to a prophetic timeline, in which Russia was identified as the central force influencing the fate of the world. Unlike many who tried to downplay the contents of the secret, Martin was unflinching in describing its seriousness. He noted that the chastisements were meant as divine retribution for humanity's increasing rejection of God's laws. However, he also pointed out that there was still hope, at least in 1960. The apocalyptic events described in The Secret, he explained, could have been avoided entirely if two specific requests from the Virgin Mary had been fulfilled. First, the Pope at the time was expected to make the full text of the Third Secret available to the entire world, allowing all of humanity to understand the gravity of the prophecy. Second, a formal consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary was to be carried out not just by the Pope alone, but in unity with all Catholic bishops. If these two conditions had been met, Martin emphasized, the disasters mentioned in the prophecy would have been prevented, and Russia would have undergone a transformation, embracing religious faith instead of spreading harmful ideologies. But neither of these requests were fulfilled during the time of Pope John XXIII. Martin expressed regret that the consecration was not performed in October 1962, when more than 2,500 bishops had gathered at the Vatican for the opening of the Second Vatican Council. It was a missed opportunity, one that, according to the prophecy, could have changed the course of history. Later, Pope John Paul II offered an explanation as to why his predecessors had avoided releasing the secret or carrying out the consecration as requested. He suggested that earlier popes had been reluctant to act because they feared that doing so might provoke political tensions, particularly with the global spread of communism at the time. They had chosen to delay revealing the secret, hoping to prevent certain geopolitical consequences. By the 1980s, as concerns about the unrevealed portion of the Third Secret grew, Pope John Paul II attempted to fulfill at least part of the consecration request. On March 25, 1984, he led a public ceremony in which he consecrated the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. However, at the last moment, he omitted a crucial detail: he did not specifically name Russia in the consecration. According to the renowned exorcist Father Gabriel Amorth, who was present at the event, this omission was not accidental. He later revealed that political figures had strongly advised the Pope against mentioning Russia by name, fearing it could create international backlash. Pope John Paul II even hesitated, reportedly asking if he was allowed to name Russia in the consecration. He was told firmly, "No, you cannot." This revelation has led many to question whether the true consecration ever took place as the Virgin Mary had originally requested. To this day, the debate continues. Was the Third Secret of Fatima fully disclosed? Was the consecration truly completed? Or does a missing portion of the prophecy hold the key to understanding the ongoing crises in the world? While the Vatican insists that the 2000 release contained the full text, those who have studied Malachi Martin's writings and the statements of figures like Father Amorth continue to believe that part of the prophecy remains hidden. If this is true, what could be so earth-shattering that multiple popes have chosen to keep it secret? And will the world ever know the full truth? Father Malachi Martin was among those who believed that the consecration of Russia had faced interference, suggesting that certain influential figures within the Church may have played a role in preventing it from being carried out as originally requested. However, this remains a topic of debate. The discussion surrounding the Third Secret of Fatima took an interesting turn when claims emerged that Pope Benedict XVI had privately admitted to Father Ingo Dollinger that the full secret had not been released. This statement caused a stir, prompting an official response from the Vatican. The Holy See's press office quickly issued a firm rebuttal, stating that Pope Benedict XVI had never discussed Fatima with Professor Dollinger. The Vatican categorically dismissed these claims as false, asserting that the remarks attributed to Dollinger were completely untrue. Furthermore, the former pope reaffirmed that the entirety of the Third Secret had already been disclosed in full. Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, who was directly involved in the 2000 release of the Third Secret, echoed this position. He explained that one of the main reasons for making the secret public at that time was to put an end to increasingly sensational theories that were circulating. According to him, speculation had reached the point where some believed the secret contained catastrophic prophecies or warnings of major upheavals within the Church. Bertone expressed surprise that, even after the official disclosure, many people continued to believe that the Vatican was withholding a crucial part of the secret. In 2006, an Italian journalist reignited the discussion with the publication of a book titled The Fourth Secret of Fatima, which proposed that a hidden portion of the message remained unpublished. This theory gained traction, leading to renewed public interest. A year later, Cardinal Bertone responded by writing his own book, The Last Visionary of Fatima, in which he strongly reaffirmed the official version of events. He explained that his work was based on extensive conversations with Sister Lucia dos Santos, the last surviving visionary of Fatima. Throughout his public appearances, Cardinal Bertone consistently denied any claims of a Vatican cover-up. He emphasized that Pope Benedict, who had previously served as the Church's top doctrinal official under the name Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, was personally involved in presenting the Third Secret to the public. Ratzinger himself had written an in-depth commentary on the message, which was unveiled alongside the text in a press conference on June 26, 2000. That historic press conference remains a significant moment for Vatican observers, as it marked the end of decades of secrecy surrounding the Third Secret of Fatima. However, it also surprised many. Expectations had been high, with some believing the secret would contain shocking predictions about the future. Instead, Cardinal Ratzinger downplayed these assumptions, stating that the message did not reveal any new apocalyptic events or hidden mysteries. He explained that, within the Church's teachings, prophecy is not meant to function as a glimpse into future events, but rather as a guide to understanding spiritual truths. As part of this explanation, he provided an interpretation of the vision described in The Secret. The imagery included a bishop dressed in white making his way up a steep hill, surrounded by the bodies of martyrs, before ultimately falling to gunfire. Many believed this figure symbolized Pope John Paul II, who survived an assassination attempt on May 13, 1981, an event that occurred on the anniversary of the first Fatima apparition. Despite the Vatican's clarifications, some figures within the Church, such as Father Nicholas Gruner, remained unconvinced. Father Gruner, a Canadian priest and founder of the Fatima Crusader magazine, argued that the consecration of Russia had not been carried out according to the precise instructions given by the Virgin Mary. He pointed out that Russia had not undergone a dramatic transformation in faith, and in fact, the country continued to face serious moral and social issues. Gruner suggested that if the consecration had been performed exactly as requested, the world would have witnessed a clear and undeniable conversion. However, Vatican officials have consistently stated that the matter is settled. They point to the fact that Pope John Paul II, along with the world's bishops, performed a consecration ceremony in 1984. Furthermore, Sister Lucia herself confirmed that this act had fulfilled the request made by the Virgin Mary, meaning that no further consecration was necessary. From the Vatican's perspective, this officially closed the debate. Nevertheless, public speculation continues. The mystery surrounding Fatima's Third Secret has persisted for decades, and even the passing of Sister Lucia in 2005 did little to quiet the ongoing discussion. When she died on February 13th, renewed interest in Fatima's prophecies spread once again. Some continue to believe that a hidden portion of the secret remains locked away, fearing that its release could cause widespread alarm. The debate has even drawn comparisons to fictional thrillers, with some people likening it to the mysteries explored in the Da Vinci Code. Over the years, various theories have emerged, weaving together elements of secrecy, power struggles, and dire warnings about the future. Some have speculated about hidden messages within the Vatican, while others have suggested that past assassination attempts on popes were somehow connected to the Fatima prophecies. Yet, at the heart of all the messages given at Fatima, there was always a clear and consistent message: seek spiritual conversion, repent for past wrongdoings, pray the Rosary, observe the First Saturday devotion, foster a worldwide devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. According to the Virgin Mary's promise, those who followed these instructions would help bring about peace in the world. However, if these requests were ignored, difficulties would persist and negative forces would continue to gain influence. Some believers argue that the challenges seen within the Church today are evidence of these warnings coming to pass. There are even those who cite a remark attributed to Pope Paul VI, in which he allegedly spoke of seeing troubling signs within the Church. According to this claim, he once stated that he could sense a dark presence within its walls, a reference that some have interpreted as a warning about internal struggles. One of the most striking aspects of Sister Lucia's vision involved the image of an angel holding a flaming sword, crying out, "Penance, penance, penance," before the flames were extinguished by the light emanating from the Virgin Mary. In the same vision, she also described seeing a figure in white, believed to be a pope, leading a group of bishops, priests, and faithful toward a large cross. As they ascended the hill, they were ultimately struck down by armed soldiers. While interpretations of this vision vary, the core message remains one of faith, perseverance, and the importance of seeking divine guidance. Whether or not the Vatican has revealed the complete secret, one thing is certain: the messages given at Fatima have had a lasting impact on believers around the world. The call to prayer, penance, and spiritual devotion continues to resonate, serving as a reminder of the importance of faith in uncertain times. Sister Lucia's vision of the Third Secret of Fatima contained a striking image: two angels standing on either side of a great cross, carefully collecting the blood of martyrs to sprinkle upon the remaining faithful who had survived. She also described a pope walking through a city that had been partially destroyed, visibly distressed, offering blessings over the bodies of the deceased. This imagery has been the subject of extensive interpretation, particularly in relation to Pope John Paul II. While recovering from the 1981 assassination attempt, Pope John Paul II specifically requested to read the Third Secret of Fatima. After examining its contents, he became convinced that it was more than just a prophecy; it was directly connected to his own survival. He believed that the Virgin Mary had intervened, guiding the bullet in such a way that it spared his life. The vision given at Fatima had included a message that the Pope of that time would endure immense suffering, and supporters of the idea that John Paul II was the Pope foretold in the secret often cite his lifelong struggles as evidence. Throughout his pontificate, he faced significant health challenges, including Parkinson's disease. He underwent multiple medical procedures, having a tumor and his appendix removed, undergoing hip replacement surgery, and recovering from a broken leg and shoulder injury. Despite these physical hardships, he continued to lead the Church, embodying resilience and faith. However, as much as discussions about his suffering persist, the principal message of Fatima has always been about spiritual renewal, repentance, acts of penance, and prayers offered for those who have no one else praying for them. A deeper look into the ongoing discussion about Fatima's third secret leads to the work of Kevin J. Simmons, an author and scholar who has studied the official Vatican release of the message. His research challenges the idea that there is an undisclosed portion of the secret that remains hidden from the public. In one of his interviews, Simmons referenced a previously unknown letter from Sister Lucia to Pope Paul VI. This letter allegedly spoke of a spiritual crisis affecting the Church, described as a diabolical attack against its teachings and leadership. In 2013, a biography about Sister Lucia titled A Pathway Under the Gaze of Mary was published by the Carmelites of Coimbra, the religious order in Portugal where she had lived for 57 years. Within this book, a newly revealed directive from the Virgin Mary was disclosed. On January 3, 1944, Sister Lucia received instructions stating that she was permitted to write down the third secret as commanded by her superiors, but she was not allowed to reveal the full prophetic meaning that had been given to her. This restriction might explain why the written text appeared incomplete to some readers. Simmons highlighted the significance of this command, arguing that it directly influenced how Sister Lucia recorded the message. Because she was forbidden to share the deeper meaning, she could not provide an accompanying explanation to clarify the vision when she wrote it down in 1944. This detail offers an alternative explanation to the claims that a second, hidden document exists. Other historical records confirm that Sister Lucia was always extremely reluctant to discuss her mystical experiences. Before 2013, there were no official documents describing the January 1944 apparition in detail, meaning much of the speculation had been based on assumptions rather than concrete evidence. Simmons cautioned against immediately jumping to conclusions, emphasizing that circumstantial theories often overlook alternative explanations. Despite these clarifications, skepticism has persisted. Some continue to argue that the Vatican has withheld a second text containing further details about the third secret. Such theories have fueled speculation for decades, often portrayed as dramatic stories involving secrecy, intrigue, and hidden truths within the Church. These claims have resonated with Catholics who are deeply concerned about the spiritual state of the Church and the world. One publicly available document that adds to the discussion is a letter from Sister Lucia, dated January 9, 1944, addressed to Bishop José da Silva. More recently, in June, Simmons visited the Sister Lucia Museum in Coimbra, Portugal, which is maintained by the Carmelite sisters who lived alongside Lucia. During his visit, he encountered another unpublished letter, an undated message from Sister Lucia to Pope Paul VI. This letter contained a powerful message of encouragement, expressing support for the Pope during a time of great difficulty. Simmons noted that its tone was strikingly similar to a letter written by Saint Padre Pio to the Holy Father in 1968. In her message, Sister Lucia described a diabolical attack against the Church, warning that forces of darkness were working against its doctrines and teachings. She likened this struggle to the agony that Christ experienced in the Garden of Gethsemane before his crucifixion, stating that the Church was enduring its own time of suffering. Sister Lucia spoke of a global disorientation that was causing confusion and distress within the faith. However, she wrote to reassure Pope Paul VI of her unwavering support, emphasizing that she and others remained steadfast in their devotion to Christ and the Church despite the trials they faced. For those who have studied the Fatima prophecies, these statements seem to echo the warnings found in the second and third secrets. The vision of the Church undergoing martyrdom as it ascends toward the cross closely parallels Sister Lucia's description of the Church's suffering. Some believe that the errors of Russia, which were specifically mentioned in the Fatima messages, played a significant role in these global struggles, leading to persecution and hardship for Christians around the world. In 1958, Sister Lucia reportedly wrote to Pope Pius XII, warning that the influence of certain ideologies would reach its peak in the 1960s. This period, she suggested, would be marked by widespread challenges for those who remained faithful to the teachings of Christ. Many traditional interpretations suggest that those who uphold their faith during this time are enduring their own form of spiritual martyrdom. Pope John Paul II himself addressed the importance of the third secret, emphasizing that it concerned the Church's role in defending the truth. He explained that the teachings of the faith must be upheld with absolute clarity, which means that any contradictions or falsehoods must also be addressed. According to the Pope, this responsibility was not only for the clergy, but for all believers who were called to protect the integrity of their faith. This perspective is consistent with the Church's historical practice of formally rejecting teachings that contradict its doctrines. The Church has always maintained that faith must be preserved and that errors should be corrected. This mission is particularly important in times of confusion, where misunderstandings can spread rapidly. In a sermon delivered in May 2000, Pope John Paul II spoke about the dangers facing the faith in the modern world. He referenced a passage from Scripture that describes 1/3 of the stars of heaven being cast down to earth by the tail of a dragon. This imagery has traditionally been interpreted as a warning about corruption within the clergy, suggesting that some within the Church could become instruments of opposition rather than defenders of the faith. Further confirmation of the importance of Fatima's message came from Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI. He stated that the Third Secret primarily addressed the dangers threatening faith and spiritual life, not only for individual believers, but for humanity as a whole. With so many interpretations, debates, and scholarly analyses, the Third Secret of Fatima remains one of the most discussed and mysterious revelations in modern religious history. While the Vatican has maintained that the full message has been revealed, speculation continues. What is certain, however, is that the core message of Fatima has always been clear. Repent and seek spiritual conversion. Perform acts of penance and reparation. Pray the Rosary for the salvation of souls. Strengthen devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. These teachings remain at the heart of the Fatima prophecies, offering guidance and hope in uncertain times. Whether or not any additional details of the Third Secret exist, the message it conveys continues to inspire believers worldwide. Father Malachi Martin, along with other scholars who studied the Fatima messages, pointed to a key statement made by the Virgin Mary during the apparitions. In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved. This phrase has been the subject of much analysis and interpretation. What exactly does it mean? Many believe that this statement implies that, while faith would remain strong in Portugal, it might not be upheld in the same way throughout other regions of the world. The concern is that in many places, both clergy and followers could drift away from the fundamental teachings of the Church, leading to a weakening of religious belief. This connects directly to the Third Secret of Fatima, which is often interpreted as a warning about the gradual erosion of the Catholic faith across Europe and possibly beyond. If people remained faithful to the core teachings of the Church, particularly the infallible definitions that have been established throughout history, their faith would be safeguarded. However, maintaining this faith requires personal effort. To strengthen one's spiritual life, it is important to seek out authentic and reliable Catholic teachings while being cautious about influences that may lead to confusion or misinterpretation. This includes being mindful of the books we read, the media we consume, and even the people we listen to regarding matters of faith. Beyond personal effort, grace is essential for spiritual perseverance. And to receive this grace, prayer is indispensable, especially the daily recitation of the Rosary, which has always been emphasized in Marian apparitions. Through prayer, believers can find clarity and avoid being misled by those who present distorted interpretations of religious teachings. In times of confusion, it is crucial not to be swayed by individuals who claim to offer a so-called deeper understanding of the gospel if their teachings contradict the established doctrines of the Church. The true measure of faithfulness lies in adherence to the core dogmas that have been clearly defined throughout Church history. When a believer is well versed in these foundational teachings, they can discern right from wrong with confidence. No matter how influential or highly positioned an individual may be within the Church, whether a priest, bishop, cardinal, or even a pope, it is always the infallible teachings of the Church that provide the ultimate guidance. While human leaders may sometimes make mistakes, the solemn definitions established by the Pope or by an ecumenical council in union with the Pope are considered unchanging and divinely protected from error. This, many argue, is the key message of Fatima, a call to remain steadfast in faith, to uphold the true teachings of the Church, and to take the necessary steps to preserve not only our own souls, but also to help others stay on the right spiritual path. At its core, this is what the Third Secret of Fatima is believed to highlight: a warning about the potential for confusion and deviation from true faith, but also a clear solution. Remain faithful, pray, and seek knowledge of authentic Church teachings. The question now is, what can be done? The answer remains the same as it always has: pray the rosary daily, deepen your understanding of the Church's teachings, and hold firm to the fundamental truths that have been passed down through the centuries. In doing so, believers can remain grounded in their faith and help ensure that its light continues to shine for generations to come. Father Malachi Martin, along with many others who have studied the messages of Fatima, often pointed to one particularly striking statement made by the Virgin Mary. In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved. While at first glance, this might seem like a simple reassurance, many believe it carries a far deeper and more unsettling meaning. The phrase does not merely affirm that faith will remain strong in Portugal, it also implies that elsewhere, the preservation of Catholic dogma may not be guaranteed. This has led to a major interpretation of the Third Secret of Fatima, that it serves as a dire warning about the potential weakening of the Catholic faith across many parts of the world. This concern is not new. For centuries, religious scholars and theologians have warned about the dangers of faith being altered, diluted, or misunderstood. However, if the Fatima prophecy does, in fact, foretell a widespread crisis in belief, then it presents a call to action for all who seek to uphold the integrity of the faith. The message is clear: those who wish to remain true to Catholicism must take steps to safeguard their beliefs. If the world is facing a gradual erosion of religious belief, what can be done to prevent it on a personal level? The answer lies in devotion, awareness, and a commitment to preserving the foundational teachings of the Church. First, individuals must take it upon themselves to actively live a life rooted in faith. This means going beyond routine religious practices and truly embracing the principles of Catholic teaching. A strong faith is not something that is merely inherited or maintained passively. It requires dedication, effort, and a conscious decision to align one's life with the core values of the Church. Second, it is essential to be discerning about what influences a person allows into their spiritual life. In today's world, where information is abundant and easily accessible, it is more important than ever to differentiate between solid, doctrinally sound Catholic teachings and misleading interpretations that may distort the truth. This means being cautious about the books we read, the magazines we follow, the television programs we watch, and even the conversations we engage in when it comes to religious topics. In a time where misinformation can spread rapidly, it is easy to fall into confusion. Some may present new interpretations of the Gospel that seem appealing or claim to offer a deeper understanding of Catholicism. But if these teachings contradict the foundational dogmas of the Church, they can lead people astray. The Catholic faith is built on core doctrines that have been carefully preserved and defined throughout history. These are not arbitrary statements, but deeply studied and divinely guided truths meant to lead people to salvation. They have been established through solemn definitions by the Pope, often in union with an ecumenical council, ensuring that they are protected from error. The significance of these infallible teachings cannot be overstated. They provide a clear, unshakable foundation that allows the faithful to navigate through challenges without falling into doubt. If people truly understood these definitions, they would be able to judge right from wrong through the lens of the Gospel. They would not be easily swayed by misleading teachings, no matter who delivers them or how authoritative they may appear. This is an important distinction to make. While popes, cardinals, bishops, priests, and laypeople can all make mistakes, the solemn definitions of Catholic dogma remain infallible. They serve as a safeguard against confusion, ensuring that the faithful always have a clear and trustworthy guide to follow. This, many believe, is the very essence of what the Virgin Mary was warning about at Fatima. She was calling the world to remain steadfast in truth, to resist being led astray, and to actively work to preserve not just their own faith, but also the faith of those around them. Many discussions surrounding the Third Secret focus on whether it contains apocalyptic predictions, hidden texts, or sensationalized mysteries. But at its core, the message of Fatima is not about fear, it is about preparation. It is a call to action. The message urges believers to take responsibility for their own spiritual well-being. It warns that faith is not something that should be taken for granted, but something that must be nurtured and defended. The faithful are not meant to sit back and wait for divine intervention to correct the course of the world. They are called to take an active role in preserving the Church's teachings. This is why the Virgin Mary's requests at Fatima were so simple yet profound. Pray the Rosary daily. This is more than just a devotional practice. It is a way of seeking divine guidance and protection from confusion. Perform acts of penance and reparation. This is a way to counteract the moral decay in the world and offer sacrifices for those who do not seek forgiveness. Encourage devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This devotion serves as a spiritual refuge in times of uncertainty. These actions are not meant to be symbolic gestures, but real, tangible steps that every believer can take to strengthen their faith and resist any potential erosion of Catholic doctrine. For those who take the Fatima message seriously, the next question is, what can we do today to ensure that we are living in accordance with these teachings? The answer lies in commitment. It begins with personal devotion, setting aside time for prayer, especially the Rosary, and fostering a deeper relationship with God. It also involves seeking out trustworthy Catholic resources and avoiding teachings that contradict the Church's long-established doctrines. Another crucial aspect is community. Faith thrives when it is shared. Encouraging others to strengthen their relationship with God, to seek truth, and to hold on to the fundamental teachings of the Church can have a lasting impact. Finally, there is the importance of awareness. Many people are unaware of the full depth of the Fatima message or misunderstand its purpose. Educating others, whether through personal discussions, books, or online resources, helps to ensure that these teachings are not forgotten or misrepresented. The Third Secret of Fatima, when viewed through this lens, is not a story of hidden conspiracies or withheld information. It is a direct call to safeguard faith in a world where spiritual confusion can take hold. It is a reminder that belief is not passive, but requires dedication and vigilance. While debates about the full contents of the Third Secret may continue, the core message remains unchanged. Faith must be preserved. Prayer is essential. The Rosary is a powerful tool for protection. Moral and spiritual vigilance are necessary to resist confusion. These lessons are as relevant today as they were in 1917. Whether one believes that all parts of the Third Secret have been revealed or not, the fundamental message is one of preparation. It is a call to remain steadfast, to hold on to truth, and to actively work towards spiritual renewal. The world may change, challenges may arise, and confusion may spread. But those who remain firm in their faith, pray for guidance, and seek knowledge will always find clarity. In this way, the message of Fatima serves as a guiding light, a reminder that, no matter what happens, those who trust in God and follow His teachings will never be led astray. The words spoken at Fatima hold a weight that extends far beyond Portugal's borders. While the Virgin Mary's promise that the dogma of the faith will always be preserved in Portugal offers hope, it also raises a troubling question: what about the rest of the world? This implication has led many scholars and theologians to believe that the Third Secret of Fatima contains a dire warning about the gradual weakening of faith in many nations. Father Malachi Martin, who claimed to have read the full Third Secret, often hinted that it spoke of a future in which Catholic teachings would be challenged not just externally, but from within the Church itself. If faith is not carefully safeguarded, it risks being distorted or lost. This is why the message of Fatima is so crucial, not as a prediction of doom, but as a roadmap for how believers can remain spiritually strong amid growing confusion. The idea that the Catholic faith could face internal struggles is not new. Many historical accounts describe periods where divisions, misinterpretations, and even corruption have threatened the Church's unity. However, The warnings at Fatima suggest something much deeper, a widespread spiritual disorientation that could mislead many people if they are not firmly grounded in the truth. This brings us back to the importance of knowing and defending Catholic doctrine. The Virgin Mary's message was not just about praying and performing acts of penance, it was about understanding the faith deeply so that no deception could take hold. Throughout history, the Church has encountered moments where confusion about its teachings caused division. But in times of uncertainty, those who remained faithful to the infallible definitions of Catholic doctrine always had a guide to navigate through these challenges. This is why the emphasis on learning the faith is so critical. Sister Lucia, one of the three visionaries of Fatima, spent much of her life calling for a return to strong spiritual foundations. She believed that if Catholics truly understood their faith, they would be able to recognize and reject errors, no matter who presented them, even if it was someone with authority within the Church. This belief is echoed in Church tradition. While individuals, including popes and bishops, can make mistakes, the solemn definitions of Catholic dogma are infallible and remain unchanged throughout time. They serve as a compass, ensuring that the faithful never lose their way. One of the strongest elements of the Fatima message is the power of the Rosary. The Virgin Mary repeatedly called for daily recitation of the Rosary, not just as a devotional practice, but as a weapon of spiritual defense. Why is the Rosary so important? It serves as a direct connection to the Virgin Mary, who intercedes for those who seek her guidance. It provides spiritual protection against confusion and deception. It strengthens faith by keeping believers focused on the key moments in the life of Christ. It acts as a form of spiritual penance, offering reparation for sins. Many saints and religious leaders have testified to the power of the Rosary in strengthening faith and providing clarity in difficult times. This is why it was emphasized so heavily at Fatima. In a world where distractions and misinformation are everywhere, the Rosary remains an unchanging source of spiritual strength. New revelations have added even more layers to the discussion surrounding the Third Secret. In recent years, a letter from Sister Lucia to Pope Paul VI surfaced, describing a diabolical revolt against the Church. This letter, which was kept largely unknown for decades, warned that forces of darkness were actively working against the Church's teachings, spreading confusion and error. Sister Lucia wrote that the Church was going through an agony in Gethsemane, much like Christ before his crucifixion. Her words seem to mirror the warnings found in the Second and Third Secrets of Fatima, suggesting that these errors would lead to spiritual suffering, persecution, and division within the Church. For those who have studied the Fatima prophecies, this is deeply significant. It suggests that the challenges faced by the modern Church, conflicts over doctrine, decreasing faith in some regions, and divisions among believers may have been foretold in the visions of 1917. Some believe that this diabolical revolt is part of the consequences of failing to heed the Fatima warnings, particularly in relation to the consecration of Russia. According to the original message, if the consecration had been done correctly and in time, the world would have seen a great spiritual renewal. Instead, many argue that we are now witnessing the very struggles that were predicted. Another aspect of the Third Secret that continues to generate discussion is Sister Lucia's vision of the cross. She described a scene in which a pope, bishops, priests, and faithful were ascending a hill toward a large wooden cross. As they climbed, they were struck down by armed soldiers. Their blood was then collected by two angels standing beside the cross and sprinkled upon the remaining faithful. Many interpretations exist regarding this vision. Some see it as a symbolic representation of persecution, while others view it as a warning of future events yet to unfold. Regardless of the exact meaning, the vision reinforces a key theme of Fatima. True faith will always come with challenges and trials, but those who remain steadfast will be rewarded. The message of Fatima is not meant to inspire fear, but to awaken believers to their responsibility. The Virgin Mary's words serve as a reminder that faith must be preserved actively not just by clergy, but by every individual who follows Christ. What can be done today? Pray the Rosary daily. This is the foundation of spiritual protection and clarity. Learn and uphold Catholic doctrine, knowing the faith deeply ensures that one is not easily misled. Perform acts of reparation and penance. These sacrifices serve as offerings for the sins of the world. Encourage devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Seeking the intercession of Mary provides strength and guidance. The Fatima prophecies have stood the test of time, continuing to resonate with those who seek to understand their faith in a deeper way. The message is one of hope and perseverance that no matter how much confusion or difficulty may arise, those who remain strong in faith will not be led astray. While debates may continue over whether the full third secret has been revealed, the core message of Fatima is clear. The Church and the world will face trials. There will be efforts to mislead and distort faith. Spiritual confusion may rise, but those who hold on to the truth will remain strong. The solution is not found in fear, but in faith. The Virgin Mary provided a clear path through prayer, devotion, and steadfast belief. The faithful can navigate any challenge. The question remains, are we listening to her words? The legacy of Fatima continues, urging all who hear its message to stand firm, to pray, and to never lose sight of the eternal truth. Regardless of what the future holds, those who remain grounded in faith will always find light in the darkness. And that, above all else, is the greatest lesson of Fatima. The messages of Fatima have long been regarded as one of the most profound revelations in modern religious history. While much of the focus has been placed on whether the third secret was fully revealed, what remains undisputed is the urgency of the Virgin Mary's warnings. As we look at the world today, many of the concerns raised at Fatima seem eerily relevant. The weakening of religious belief, the struggles within the Church, the moral confusion in society, these are not abstract fears but realities unfolding before our eyes. For those who study the Fatima prophecies, the question is no longer, has the full secret been revealed? But rather, are we heeding the message? One of the most haunting images from Sister Lucia's vision was that of a pope leading bishops, priests, and faithful up a steep hill toward a large wooden cross, only to be struck down by soldiers. This moment, while deeply symbolic, raises questions about the future of the Church. Does this vision represent a past event, such as the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul Roman II? Or does it refer to a future time of even greater persecution? Some believe that the vision symbolizes a spiritual martyrdom, where faith itself will be tested in ways never seen before. The fact that angels were seen collecting the blood of the martyrs and sprinkling it upon the surviving faithful suggests that those who remain devoted to Christ will receive divine strength, even in the midst of suffering. This vision is a reminder that throughout history, the Church has endured persecution. From the earliest Christians facing the Roman Empire to more modern conflicts, faith has always been met with opposition. However, the true test is not physical persecution alone, but spiritual endurance remaining steadfast even when the world offers alternative paths that seem easier or more appealing. The previously unknown letter from Sister Lucia to Pope Paul Roman VI adds yet another layer to this discussion. In this letter, she spoke of a diabolical attack against the Church. She described it as a worldwide disorientation that was martyring the Church from within. Her words suggest that the greatest battle would not be one fought in open opposition, but a silent struggle, where confusion and misinterpretation weaken the Church from the inside. This statement has led many to speculate. Could the crisis Sister Lucia spoke of refer to the increasing divisions within the Church? Does it suggest a loss of clarity regarding doctrine, where foundational teachings are challenged or reinterpreted? Or does it point to a rise in secularism, where faith is replaced with ideologies that contradict the very essence of Christianity? Regardless of the exact interpretation, one thing remains clear. Fatima's message is a call to remain firm in the truth, no matter how difficult the path may be. A key part of the Fatima message revolved around the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Sister Lucia was told that if this request was carried out as instructed, Russia would be converted, and the world would experience a time of peace. However, the debate over whether this was fulfilled continues. In 1984, Pope John Paul II led the consecration of the world, though he did not explicitly name Russia. Some argue that this fulfilled the Virgin Mary's request, while others claim that the absence of direct mention means the consecration was incomplete. What is undeniable, however, is that Russia has remained a focal point in global affairs. Whether politically, spiritually, or culturally, the role of Russia continues to be significant, and some believe that the errors warned about at Fatima, errors of ideology, secularism, and conflict, still hold power today. As the discussion of Fatima's messages continues, the Virgin Mary's warnings remain as relevant as ever. These warnings were not given to instill fear, but to guide humanity toward salvation. The 5 core elements of her message are: a call to prayer. The Rosary was emphasized repeatedly, not just as a devotion, but as a weapon against spiritual confusion. Penance and sacrifice, offering up sufferings for the conversion of sinners, is a key part of the Fatima message. Devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, a source of refuge and strength in times of trial. The consecration of Russia, a necessary step toward global peace. The warning of apostasy, the danger of spiritual deception, and the loss of true faith. Each of these elements is intertwined with the others. Without prayer, it is difficult to remain strong in faith. Without penance, conversion is harder to achieve. Without devotion to Mary, believers lose an essential source of intercession. Without unity in consecration, divisions continue. And without awareness of apostasy, many may not recognize the dangers creeping into their faith. Regardless of whether the full third secret has been revealed, its core message continues to shape discussions about the Church's future. Pope John Paul II, in his sermon in May 2000, referenced a passage from the Book of Revelation that speaks of 1/3 of the stars being cast down by the dragon's tail. Many Catholic scholars interpret this as a warning about the fall of clergy members into deception or confusion. Cardinal Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI, also affirmed that the third secret speaks of the dangers threatening faith and the Christian life. He emphasized that its message is not about predicting disasters, but about the ongoing spiritual battle between good and evil. This battle is not just fought on a global scale, but within each person's heart. Every day, individuals face choices that either bring them closer to God or lead them away. In this sense, Fatima's warning is both universal and deeply personal. So, what can be done now to respond to the message of Fatima? Daily prayer, strengthening personal faith through daily prayer, especially the Rosary. Understanding the faith, studying church teachings to ensure that one is not misled by confusion or false interpretations. Living a life of penance, offering small sacrifices as acts of reparation. Encouraging devotion to Mary, helping others find refuge in the Immaculate Heart. Strengthening the Church, supporting true, faithful teachings and resisting efforts to distort them. The Virgin Mary's message was not just for those who witnessed the apparitions in 1917. It was a message for all generations. It was a warning, but also a guide on how to remain faithful despite any trials that may come. The story of Fatima does not end with the disclosure of the third secret. It is an ongoing reality, a call to action that remains relevant today. The Church will continue to face challenges. The world will struggle with faith and morality. But those who hold fast to the truth will never be led astray. The Virgin Mary did not promise that suffering would disappear, but she did promise that those who trust in God and remain faithful will always be protected. The question now is, are we listening? The story of Fatima is not just history, it is a living message. And in a time where the world seems increasingly uncertain, its lessons are more valuable than ever. The story of Fatima does not end with the apparitions of 1917 or the gradual revelations of the secrets. It continues in the unfolding events of history and in the choices made by individuals and the Church as a whole. The message was given not for one time, but for all time, and its urgency only grows as the years pass. Those who have studied the Fatima prophecies understand that the warnings were not just about physical dangers or political conflicts, but about something far greater: the spiritual state of the world. The loss of faith, the rise of false teachings, and the weakening of moral values are not simply coincidences of history, but signs that the battle spoken of at Fatima is still taking place. The struggle between good and evil is not fought on battlefields alone. It is fought in the hearts and minds of people everywhere. The Virgin Mary came not to bring fear, but to bring hope, showing the way to remain strong in faith, no matter how difficult the times may become. As Sister Lucia grew older, she continued to emphasize the importance of responding to the Fatima message. In letters and interviews, she made it clear that the warnings given were not to be taken lightly. She knew that many would dismiss them as distant prophecies or symbolic visions, but for her, they were real and urgent. She spoke of how the errors warned about in the secret had already begun to spread, not just in one nation but throughout the world. She saw the consequences of ignoring Mary's requests, how the moral fabric of society was unraveling, how people were turning away from the faith, and how even within the Church, confusion was taking root. One of the most persistent debates has been whether the full Third Secret was ever revealed. While the Vatican insists that the entirety of the message was made public in 2000, others remain unconvinced. The descriptions given by those who reportedly read the secret before its release do not always match the text that was published. Some believe that a critical portion remains hidden, a segment that might contain more explicit warnings about the state of the Church and the dangers that would come from within rather than from external forces. Malachi Martin, among others, hinted that the missing part of the secret dealt with a great crisis of faith, a time when deception would be widespread and many would be led astray, even within the Church itself. This interpretation aligns with the fears expressed by various popes and cardinals who warned about the smoke of Satan entering the Church. Whether or not these elements were part of the official Third Secret, they seem to reflect the reality of modern times. The rise of secularism, the growing divisions within religious communities, and the struggle to maintain clear and unwavering doctrine are all signs that the battle is intensifying. But the message of Fatima is not one of despair. It is a call to action, a roadmap for navigating the trials of faith and remaining steadfast in the truth. Sister Lucia repeatedly insisted that the solution was simple yet profound. Prayer, especially the Rosary, acts of penance, and unwavering devotion to the teachings of Christ as preserved by the Church. The Virgin Mary did not ask for grand gestures or impossible tasks. She asked for something within the reach of every believer: the commitment to live a life of faith, to pray earnestly, and to seek forgiveness and grace. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Fatima message is its emphasis on free will. The prophecies given were not inevitable fates, but warnings with conditions. If people responded to the call for repentance, many of the chastisements could be averted. If the consecration of Russia had been carried out precisely as requested, a period of peace was promised. This means that history is still being written, and the choices made today matter. The world is not doomed to follow a predetermined path, but it is shaped by the faith and actions of those who choose to listen or ignore the call of Fatima. Pope John Paul II, deeply moved by the Fatima prophecies, devoted much of his pontificate to spreading devotion to Mary and warning about the spiritual dangers facing the world. He saw his own survival from an assassination attempt as a direct intervention of the Virgin Mary, reinforcing his belief in the urgency of the Fatima message. His dedication to prayer, his efforts to unite the Church, and his calls for a return to strong moral foundations were all in alignment with what had been revealed in 1917. Yet even he acknowledged that the challenges facing the faith were growing stronger, and that without continued vigilance, the world could fall further into spiritual darkness. As time moves forward, The debate over the third secret will likely continue. Some will insist that the full message has already been disclosed, while others will argue that there are still hidden truths yet to be revealed. But beyond this debate, what remains undeniable is the impact that the Fatima apparitions have had on the world. The call to prayer, the urgency of conversion, and the warning against moral decline are as relevant now as they were when first spoken to the three shepherd children in Portugal. The question is not just whether the full secret has been revealed, but whether people are listening to the message that has already been given. Are believers taking the warnings seriously? Are they praying, seeking truth, and standing firm in faith? The Virgin Mary's words were not meant to be locked away in a Vatican archive, but to be lived out in daily life. The Rosary remains a powerful weapon against spiritual confusion, and the call to penance remains an essential part of the path to redemption. For those who take the Fatima message to heart, the mission is clear. It is not to wait for another revelation or another warning, but to act now. To strengthen faith, to pray without ceasing, and to guide others toward the truth. The battle between good and evil continues, and the outcome depends not just on what has been prophesied, but on how people choose to respond. Fatima is not just a story from the past, it is a message for the present and the future. The Virgin Mary's call to prayer and conversion is ongoing, and those who heed it will find the strength to navigate even the most challenging times. The promise given at Fatima is that despite trials, despite struggles, and despite the darkness that may come, those who remain faithful will never be abandoned. The Immaculate Heart of Mary is a refuge, and through her intercession, the world can still find the peace that was promised. The final question is not whether the secret is fully known, but whether the message has been fully embraced. The words spoken over a century ago still echo today, waiting for those who will listen and act. In the end, the choice remains with each individual whether to follow the path laid out by the Virgin Mary or to ignore the call and risk the consequences foretold. But for those who choose faith, hope, and devotion, the promise of Fatima remains as powerful as ever. In the end, the Immaculate Heart will triumph.